Professor Robert Winston. What makes an outstanding teacher?
Oh, what a wonderful question. I mean, I think that outstanding teachers can't be categorized, but they're people who are able to connect. Above all, I think they're communicators. They're people who, first of all, like the people that they're teaching. Secondly, are prepared to listen to the people they're teaching. Communication is not a one-way process. It's a two-way process, and we forget that. So, the didactic won't work nearly as well as the listening and responsive mode, and I think we often forget that in teaching.
What's your favourite movie?
I think Fanny and Alexander, the Bergman movie. And the reason why I like Fanny and Alexander so much is because it looks at the world through a child's eyes, and it sees every aspect, every emotion in a long film of terror, wonder, magic, love, hate, all those relationships. And it would be regarded as a slightly old-fashioned movie, but I think it's one of the best movies ever.
Okay. What's your favourite book on teaching? Or would you recommend a book on teaching? Anything comes to mind?
Well, I don't really read books on teaching, but I read books that teach me, I think. So I tend to read quite a lot of non-fiction, because I think actually by reading non-fiction I learn more about things outside my own subject. So I would argue that, for example, one of the things I do a lot is to read a huge amount of history, whether it's Simon Sharma or Orlando Figures or C.V. Wedgwood, or any of the historians who are writing in a popular way. And I find that actually teaches me more than probably the conventional way of reading about teaching.
Okay. Angelina Jolie or Jennifer Aniston?
I don't really have a view. I'm very boring, aren't I?
What is your most effective teaching strategy? Or what would you say was the most effective teaching strategy if you had to say one?
I think getting your hands wet. I think actually doing practical work and doing it with somebody, and I think trying to do things where you're personalising what you're doing to that individual.
Okay. Favourite holiday destination?
Well, it depends on which country. There's a little lake in North Italy which I like very much, Lake Como, which I probably go to more often than anywhere else.
George Clooney?
Well, he lives down the road, but I don't see him. He comes to the village sometimes where I sometimes go. I mean, in this country, pretty well anywhere in the UK, because I think actually the UK, whether it's the northeast or the southwest, is actually amazingly beautiful.
Cool. Top tip for surviving Ofsted?
Well, don't do what Frank does. I mean, I think Frank was great in his talk. I loved his approach, but actually, that's not going to work in the long term. I mean, we've really got to communicate, and you can't slag off things just with a passion. I think passion is right in its place, but I think we have to constantly be prepared to be flexible, because we're not going to get all the changes we want in education. But actually, I think we have to, we have to do that. The other thing I think we actually have to do is to value, I think we have to value the politicians a bit more. Actually, the northeast of England's a very, very good example. The northeast of England is absolutely pissed off with Westminster. By and large, you go around the average educational system in the northeast, better than I do.
It feels like it's left out.
It's very left wing, but it feels left out. It feels that even it feels that Labour Party doesn't understand it. It's not so different from what's happening in Scotland. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a two-way disconnect in communication. And I think that we need to do much more about that in politics. So you see what seems to be a privileged group of people going down to Westminster, riding roughshod over what you need. And I must say, when I was last in, I forget, Teesside, or I forget, it might have been in Newcastle. Around the table we're having lunch, and I just found it a very uncomfortable feeling.
A negative vibe.
That we don't have a dialogue.
Yeah.
I think dialogue is very important.
Absolutely.
And I think if we slag each other off, we don't get anywhere.
Okay, great. What's your favourite type of music?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to apologise for my favourite type of music, but I'm chairman of the Royal College of Music. So I'm passionately involved with classical music.
Classical.
But you know what? I don't really care. I mean, I listen to any music, and I'm modern classical or jazz or. But ultimately, if I had to live with one kind of music, it would have to be something classical, Shostakovich or Beethoven or Bach, whatever.
Thank you for your time, Professor.